Today's training is on Positive Behavior Supports EBI. EBI, again, stands for Emergency Behavior Intervention. And as a reminder, our facility is a non-restraint facility. Today, we're going to learn about understanding emotional issues with children, power struggles, the trauma impact, and holiday stress. Using Positive Behavior Supports EBI to help youth improve behavior, build rapport, and gain self-control. Behavior. What is it? Every child's behavior is telling us something. Our job is to see the behavior as information, not aggravation. As you notice in the picture, there are several different behaviors depicted. Anxiety, anger, trust, joy, surprise, fear, love, and sadness. These are just a few behaviors that are seen through emotions. Behavior is a person's external reaction to their environment. All behavior, such as yelling, crying, running, or throwing something, can be observed and measured. The behavior definition also includes how a person functions as a response to something. Sometimes behaviors are to gain something. Sometimes behaviors are to avoid something. What we sometimes see as a failure to behave properly is actually a failure to communicate properly. This can be seen in children, teens, and adults when you see them act in a way that is either frustrated, sad, angry, confused. There's actually a hidden meaning or reason that they're behaving that way. And so we need to find out what is their emotional cause to their behaviors. Now let's discuss the ABC model of behaviors. A stands for antecedent, a stimulus or trigger, something that we react to, things we want or want to get away from. B is for behavior, a response to the antecedent. We use behavior to accomplish our goals. C, consequence, lets people know how effective or ineffective their behavior was in achieving their goal. Gives feedback about how we did or did not accomplish our goals. I will work to make an ABC model of behaviors chart that will be available for you to review. Consequences. Kids need more than just a consequence to alter their behavior. They need to learn how to change their behavior for next time. So feedback is often needed for the children to learn if their behavior was effective or ineffective. Changing the way the antecedent is most effective way to support our children and teens. So teaching the kiddos what their triggers are. Remember, antecedents are triggers. So teaching the children what their triggers are will help them understand how to change their behavior when they react to it. For instance, a trigger or an antecedent could be giving direction to a kid about a task or an activity that needs to be done. It could be asking the child to wait. It could be starting a new activity or a new task. It could be the difficulty of the actual task. It could be stopping a preferred activity that the child is doing. It could be telling a child no. It could be a loud, noisy environment. It could be giving assistance or correction when they are not wanting it. It could be a transition between locations or activities. It could even be a time of day. It can be the attention that you actually give to other children. It could be the presence of a specific person that gets on that child's nerves. It could be an unknown trigger or unknown antecedent. It could be attention that you give to the child that's not wanted. It could be something that you say or do that embarrasses the child. It could be leaving the child alone, or it could be giving the child too much attention. Those are all antecedents or triggers. But what are the behaviors we're looking for, the B's? Refusing to follow directions, making verbal threats, disrupting the shelter, verbal refusal, crying or whining, screaming or yelling, scratching, biting, spitting, laying on the ground and flopping around, running away or bolting, destroying property or throwing things, flipping furniture, hurting themselves, or hitting or kicking others, or, verbally cussing and yelling, things along those lines. So what happens after? What we want to look for is what we did to help the child change, and those are those consequences. So we could verbally redirect the child. We could ignore the problem behavior if it's mild. We could use proximity to control the situation, and proximity is just getting closer to the child. Again, we're a non-restraint facility, so you wouldn't be touching them, but you're staying in close proximity to the child so they realize that they need to kind of keep their behaviors more mild or keep their behaviors in check. It could be removing other children from the space or removing that child from the space, like asking all the other children to get out of the room or asking that child to go to a different location to kind of stop the distractibility factor and let that child gain some self-control. It could be a verbal reprimand. It could be asking the child to just do another task or activity. It could actually be an interrupted or a blocked redirection. So literally, if they're chasing a child and you just stood in the child's way from getting the other child. Again, we're non-restraint facilities, you're not touching that child. It could be the loss of a privilege. With consequences, if you over-threaten loss of privileges or take everything away, like we learned in the last training, that is a definite lose-lose situation. So don't take all their privileges away or take all their stuff away, because that sets you back to failure with that child. It sets them at zero. Children who have nothing to gain have nothing to lose, and they'll just cause problems. So don't do that. Other children laughing at them or making remarks at them can bother them. A timeout could be another consequence. So there's a lot of different consequences they can have. And so there are some natural consequences too. Like if a child decides that it's cold outside and they don't want to wear a coat, then they can experience what it's like to be cold. Especially those older children when they refuse to wear a coat and want to wear shorts in the winter. So that's a natural, logical consequence. Okay, so that's a different type of consequence. A power struggle occurs when an adult and a child, or two adults, or two children get into an argument over who's right and who's wrong. The truth is, power struggles allow no one to win. A power struggle collapses when you withdraw all of your energy from it. Power struggles become uninteresting to you when you change your intention from winning to learning about yourself. As adults, we need to have the ability not to get into power struggles with the youth. I really like this quote. Trying to win a power struggle is like trying to win a nuclear war. You may be achieving your goal of winning, but not without catastrophic casualties on both sides. And what they mean by that is you actually lose the relationship with the youth, and you lose the opportunity for them to learn from their frustration. So the best thing you can do for a child is don't get involved in an argument or power struggle. Refrain from having the last word. Refrain from just overpowering them verbally. Allow time to pass, pause, and then revisit the young person about their behavior and what was the underlying antecedent or trigger that they were upset about. Were they wanting something? Were they needing something? Or were they avoiding something? And how can we resolve that without a behavior struggle and power struggle in the future? Power struggles. We get into power struggles with our youth because we are not on the same page as them. We don't have to have the last word in a discussion. We need to get to know our kids. What is their background, home life, temperament, and interests? Oftentimes, the case managers might have information about a child's personal background. Sometimes it takes until we have one of our first court hearings to learn about their home life. But some families tend to get into a lot of power struggles, and those children bring those communication styles with them. We need to take time to listen to the kiddos and to the children. We need to listen to what they are asking for and what they need. When they are struggling and get verbally aggressive, we tend to not be listening clearly to what their goals are. So we need to ask the young person, what is it that you want or need? The answer may not always be yes, but it doesn't also always have to be no. Sometimes it could be yes, but not right now. What setting event took place at home, on the bus, visitation, or at removal? We also need to know what happened that day that triggered a child. Sometimes children are just hungry. Sometimes children are reacting to other children leaving and going home, and they don't get to go home yet, so it's frustrating to them to see other children get to go to family. Sometimes their parents didn't show up for visitation, or sometimes they had a struggle on the school bus or at school. Oftentimes, children misbehave or are disruptive because of something else in a different setting at school or at home that set them off. Remember, there is always a reason behind these challenging behaviors. Now, let's talk about ways to reduce challenging behaviors and prevent power struggles. Listen to our kids. Don't jump to conclusions. Oftentimes we'll hear kids arguing or bickering, and we go in to break up the argument. But if we weren't physically present or in earshot, we don't know the true conversation. So don't always take all the children's opinions individually. You need to take them as a collective, because even the child who's misbehaving could actually be the victim. Respond calmly. Take a few minutes to get everything under control before you make assumptions and before you provide some form of consequence to their behavior. The most important thing is to get to the bottom of what is going on, and that requires you to listen to our kids. Teach or demonstrate alternative behaviors. Let a child know about breathing techniques to calm down. Let a child see you take time to collect your thoughts before speaking. Also, teach our children to take time to get away from those who are disrupting them or triggering them, so they have a chance to get their thoughts together before they yell and scream and fight. Also teach our kids about sharing. With little kids, it's often about fairness or sharing or taking turns or being first or being last or winning or losing games and activities. Remember to give every person an opportunity to be a leader and a helper in our different activities that we offer here at the shelter. So offer choices. Eliminate those power struggles. Now, you don't want to give so many choices that it becomes overwhelming. I like to think of choices as baseball. Never give more than 3, because anything over 3 is too much. Notice the positives in our youth. Try to stay positive. Recognize when they are able to calm down and say, thank you for calming down. Thank you for taking time not to throw things this time, or thank you for sharing. If we do not recognize and accentuate the positive behaviors that the youth have, they're not reinforced positively. So please, as a staff, stay positive and offer praise to the kids when you see them doing well. A big thing a staff can do as a team and as an individual group leader is to be consistent. Being consistent is the strongest buffer to disruptions. What does that mean, being consistent? Being consistent is actually following our routine. Being consistent is following our rules. Being consistent is staying on schedule. Being consistent can be actually being organized and clean in the shelter. Being consistent is making sure that we do things in a routine fashion. The kids don't have to worry about what to expect next. Kids often evaluate us at all times. They are seeing if you are a rule follower and you're being consistent. That helps them build trust. Let our youth know about any changes to our routine ahead of time. If you let them know that there's going to be a change to our routine and then it's out of the norm for today and we'll go back to our normal schedule tomorrow, then they will not fight you on the rule change on the next day. And it also helps young people, especially children who have neurodivergent issues, understand that we're about to transition an activity. So that means we're stopping an activity that we're enjoying right now and we're about to change to a different activity, whether it be going from playtime to mealtime or playtime to bath time, those types of things. The biggest thing we can do as staff is have fun and plan fun things to do. Also, with planning our fun and having fun, we have to work together as a team. We all know each other's strengths as coworkers. Some of us sing, some of us are crafty, some of us play games, some of us are athletics, some of us sing. There are so many different things that we all excel at. By using an opportunity to have fun, plan fun as a team, it helps keep your shift busy. Remember, idle time, just allowing all the children to have free time at one time, is usually dangerous and can cause problems because the different age ranges of youth and the youth have different backgrounds, also with their learning disabilities or behavioral issues or mental health issues, they tend to clash when they have unstructured fun time. Having structured fun time makes your shift run smoothly. Another big thing is don't take the bait. As the little boy fishing down there, he's fishing and it says, "Shark, catch of the day." If you don't want to get bitten by the shark, then don't take the bait. Sometimes kids will just be sassy. Sometimes the kids will just be sarcastic. Sometimes the children will just test you just to see how they can trust you. And so you need to let the child know that you're not going to take the bait. You're not going to bait me into a situation where we're going to get into an argument. I'm not in the mood to argue with you. I'm here to have fun. And so make sure that the young person, when they're trying to be testing or trying to be manipulative, you make them aware that you're aware of that situation and let's do something different. But try to do it and redirect them in a positive way. Oftentimes when we're going to switch activities or do an activity, a child may not like the activity you're doing. In that case, it could be a situation where you're doing like Scrabble and that child has dyslexia or has a learning disability and can't spell. Offer for that young person to work with you and also say that you have trouble spelling, so together you can both use a dictionary. Or offer the child to be able to pick the next activity and let's complete the first game first and then they'll start the next activity that they get to choose next. And so sometimes just giving them those opportunities to have some control, whether it be small or not, just picking the next activity could make a big change in their behavior. Here's an example of power struggles. I recently heard of the term power struggle described as an emotional tug of war. I like to refer to it as a lose-lose situation. When you're in a tug of war and there's only two people, neither person really wins. Look at the expression on the clip art. He's frustrated and she's frustrated. In that situation, when you're in a power struggle, no one ever comes out happy. You come out resentful and you also come out hurt emotionally. Power struggles are not enjoyable. When two people or parties are competing for control or influence, it makes for a very uncomfortable and frustrating experience. I've had my fair share of power struggles with both youth and adults as a professional working in the agency. I'd like to share some strategies that have helped staff avoid power struggles in the past on the next slide. Here are 4 strategies to avoid power struggles. Looking inward. It may not always be easy to look at your behaviors, but it's important. Explore what makes you tick. What brings you joy or sadness? What makes you angry, fearful, or calm? Once you understand your own emotional and mental well-being, you will have an increasingly ability to be mindful of your behavior. When we are not in tune with ourselves, we are vulnerable to getting sucked into conflict and unintentionally pouring gasoline on a fire instead of putting it out. That means we do not know ourselves, so we are easily triggered, and then we get into power struggles as a result of it. Number 2, focus on yourself. Some people seem to thrive off conflict, and these people are often who inevitably pull us into power struggles. Some do so as a learned behavior, some for attention, and some simply because they lack the skills to communicate effectively or appropriately. Regardless of the reason, what you need to remember is there's only one person you have control over, and that is yourself. Think of it as that tug of war on the page before this one. Just put down the rope. You don't have to pull and tug to see if you can win or lose the argument. Just let go of the rope. Recognize the signs. Identify when you are at risk of entering a power struggle. Can you feel your face getting red? Is your heart starting to pump faster? Is your voice tight or tense? Knowing when you're about to enter a power struggle is the best way to get out of it. Once you realize that you're headed in the wrong direction, acknowledge what you're experiencing and plan a way out of it. With power struggles in staff or power struggles in the children, we have to realize that self-awareness helps us put down the argument. Finally, 4, leave the situation. It's natural to get angry, sad, or frustrated at some point or another. The key to navigating those feelings, especially during a power struggle, is when our emotions are heightened. It is to step back, name what you're experiencing, and simply remove yourself from the situation. Now, that doesn't mean we can walk away from our group. That doesn't mean we can walk away from a coworker when we're watching our kids. It means you can't just sit and have a meltdown. You don't want to burst into tears, and you don't want to run away and say, I need some personal time, because when we're watching the children, we don't really have personal time. But what we need to do is learn to let the situation go. Quit speaking, take time to breathe, think about the problem, and then address the situation. If you find yourself in a power struggle with a child, it's okay to pause. Or even with a coworker, it's okay to pause. What's important is that you model appropriate behavior for the child and finish the conversation when it's more appropriate time to discuss the issue, preferably when you're both calm. For example, when you press pause by saying, I can see that you're very upset about this, and I want to be able to give you a fair and clear answer, but right now I'm not in the right place or headspace to do that. I'm going to take some time for myself, and I will revisit this with you later. Be sure to follow up with them the same day. Give them just a little bit of break between your thoughts and the argument, and then go back when you have a better frame of mind to discuss the situation. Again, you might not always have a yes for that young person. It may be a yes, not right now situation. The more we can self-regulate, the better we will be able to deal with difficult situations. Ways to gain better self-awareness and self-regulation are through meditation, deep breathing, relaxation exercises, drawing, positive self-talk, playing sports or doing a physical activity, walking, listening to music, or talking to whomever you feel comfortable receiving feedback from. Now again, we can't always do these things when we're watching a kid in our group. But be mindful that you could also show this to the young person and do it with them while other people watch your group, so you can teach the child to walk and talk it out. Be mindful of your emotions and behaviors during difficult conversations, and be prepared to step away if you feel things going in a negative direction. It is okay to press pause. And it's okay to ask a supervisor for help and another staff member for help. It doesn't mean we can immediately rush in and help you with a power struggle with a kid if we, as an administrative team, are not on site. It may mean that you need to pause that power struggle for now and address it with someone else who can give you assistance and be more of an objective observer in the argument. That may be relying on your coworker who's watching another group, but that doesn't mean that you have to relieve yourself frequently of that group because you can't learn to self-moderate. So what are these positive behavior supports? Well, here's a definition. To gain knowledge about how to better understand people and to help them make changes in their lives, to reduce challenging behaviors and reinforce positive behaviors. With that EBI component, it's teaching emergency behavior intervention to stop a problem without having to restrain the child. Again, we're a non-restraint facility, so we shouldn't have to do anything physically to stop the child or adult from acting a certain way. We should be able to do this through verbal redirection and talking it out. We need to take time to set up interventions to help our kids use their strengths to meet their own needs. We need to let the youth think. Too often we make decisions for them. We need to let the kiddos have a chance to provide input. Do we like being told what to do all the time? No. Do kids like having choices? Yes. So by allowing them to have some input, we could go ahead and ask what kind of choices should we make here. Let them help decide their consequences sometimes, or even their activities, but kind of limit again those choices to about 3. Remember that baseball adage, limiting choices to about 3 is the safest number. And always think prevention. Is our environment clean and organized? Physical needs of the child. Are they hungry? Are they sleepy? Did they just come from a bad experience at visitation? Did they have problems at school all day? What time of day is it? Is it bath time? Is it bedtime? Do they struggle during that time of day? Or is it early morning and they're not a morning person? Positive behavior supports is utilizing our knowledge of the child and trying to pinpoint all these different things ahead of time to successfully keep our positive behavior supports in place to prevent needing to use any form of emergency behavior intervention. We want to do prevention. Prevention. Prevention are strategies to reduce the likelihood that a child will need or want to use the challenging behavior. It's allowing the children to be self-aware and helping teach them to be self-aware with our coworkers, providing that consistent teamwork behavior, planning activities, planning things to be fun, and allowing them to have boundaries without a negative environment is prevention. Look at the happy children at the bottom. Wouldn't it be nice if we worked together as a strong team, supporting one another and supporting the youth to make healthy choices? It's not about control. It's about working together with the kids, building rapport, and building rapport with our coworkers so we all work together for the greater good, the children. When you think about prevention, ask yourself these questions. How can my environment be changed to reduce the likelihood that the behavior will occur? So, is the shelter neat and organized? Is the activity suiting the attention span of the children? Did we plan a good activity to meet everyone's needs? Are we all speaking in a nice, peaceful tone? Or are we all getting along? If the environment is very disruptive and loud and overstimulating, then we're not being preventative. How can I build on what works? Building on what works is meaning that we ourselves as staff recognize how we can successfully teach a child some positive behavior supports for themselves. That's breathing techniques, walking techniques, calming techniques, having them recognize their environment and having them communicate if things are too loud, too disruptive, teaching them to share, teaching them to take turns, making it not such a struggle. Oftentimes, in reflecting back from what we learned during our one-on-one meetings with staff, is we learned that power struggles are really what's getting us into issues. And so by eliminating those power struggles, we can work with the children more effectively. Also, working together as a team, asking another staff member what they do that works well with the child, and then following through with that on our own, rather than looking for a way just not to work with that difficult child. Staff should take on working with difficult children as a challenge, and it's something to overcome. We want that child to work away from being a challenge, and we want them to be successful in their communication styles to meet their needs without having behavior problems. That is a win-win for the child and for us as staff. What can be done to help the child deal with or avoid behavior triggers? The big thing is, what are the ABCs? What are the antecedents that trigger the behavior? What is the behavior that they are doing as a result to the trigger? And then see, what are the consequences? Sometimes we give consequences that are not useful. They're not effective. Remember, over-punishing is a negative response or a negative consequence. It's not effective. Remember, consequences have to make an impact on the child's situation. They have to have a consequence that teaches them something, not just takes something away. To lose a privilege is one thing, but what is the lesson? To go into timeout 1 minute per age of life of the child, so if the child's 3, they're in timeout for 3 minutes. Do they learn anything from just sitting in timeout? No. You have to have that feedback after the timeout to discuss why they went into the timeout in the first place and why we can do things differently so they don't have to have timeout in the future. Always providing feedback of why we had to give a consequence, and helping that young person identify the behavior, and definitely having the young person identify the trigger and how they could either avoid the trigger or they could reduce the impact of the trigger on their next exposure. Reinforcement versus punishment. Reinforcement is the purpose of reinforcement is to increase the likelihood of a behavior. Studies show that when we recognize good behavior, that it's often repeated. Studies show that reinforcement is more effective at changing behavior than punishment. If we think about the American judicial system and the prison system, there are so many prisoners and they're overcrowded. And why is that? It's because they're in a punishment-based system. All it does is withhold privileges, it limits their ability to have things, and they're just kind of locked up and warehoused. Nothing about that reinforces good behavior. So we need to take time and let a child know, or an adult know, exactly what they did well. And so we need to let these young people know when they've faced an antecedent or a trigger, they avoided it and they did not have a behavioral outburst. And so as a result of that, their consequence is a reward, not something that's taken away, like a loss of a privilege or a verbal redirection or something like that. And so anytime we see a child doing something well, we need to recognize it. Reinforcement. Praise are words to say to our kids when we want to positively reinforce behavior that they have changed to get along with others. Just examples there on the screen. You did it. Great job. Awesome. Good job. Terrific. Good for you. Outstanding. You did it. I knew you could. Tremendous. High five. You are a fast learner. Wonderful. Thank you for being a good team player. I'm so proud of you. You did so much better. Good for you. Wow. These are just kind of some little words of affirmation that you could tell a young person that you recognize that they're being successful in changing their behavior. Positive reinforcement is a powerful teaching tool. Encouraging words for kids helps them realize that you believe in them and you are setting them up for success. Reinforcement, again, doesn't always have to be something tangible. But just like in the image here, there's some stickers, there's a high five going on, there's a thumbs up. Those things all mean something to our kiddos. In addition to that, so does our token system. When you give them the token at the end of your shift, you need to say, thank you so much for doing a great job today. You've earned your token. Remember, you can go to the token room on Saturday. Also, thinking in terms of if they've worked hard to really get along with somebody, maybe they get to help plan an activity for later in the week, or they get to pick out a board game or something like that. Something empowering along those lines is very beneficial with the kids. Now let's talk punishment. We use punishment to decrease behavior. But is punishment always effective? The answer is really no. When we punish, we usually take something away. So the loss of a privilege. Or it could be taking something out of their room. But like I said before, our prison system is a punishment system. Our judicial system, our juvenile system is a punishment system. Those things do not tend to change a child's behavior because they're only taking things away. It's not teaching the child self-control. So punishment systems, although we can use timeout and we can't use restriction of privileges as a form to get a child to change their behavior, it really is a least effective system. So our goal is to try to encourage children through the reinforcement system, like our positive youth development training that we've learned earlier in the year, or our praise system. We want to build kids up rather than tear them down and pulling all their things away. So when you're in a punishment system, that's when you get into those power struggles. And again, from what we talked about earlier in this training, we want to avoid power struggles. We want to be positive, and we want to strive for positive behavior change and positive behavior supports. And by doing that, we're looking towards reinforcement. Look at these slides. Punishment. Do these kids look happy? No. Do these kids look like they have a positive self-esteem? Do they look like they're in control of their behavior? Or do they look miserable, unhappy, lost, alone? They don't look like they believe in themselves. By using a punishment-based system, we cause images like this. As staff, we need to work together as a team to be positive, provide consistency, and reinforcement, positive reinforcement to help a child gain self-control. And that does mean being self-aware, aware of ourselves, aware of them, and avoiding power struggles, and avoiding a punishment-based system. We want to use a reinforcement or a praise-based system. It yields stronger, healthier kids. Consider this. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to spell, we teach. Consider this. If a child doesn't know how to behave, do we punish or do we teach? As an agency, we teach. We want children to have a healthy self-esteem. We want children to have a healthy self-control. We want children to understand the ABCs and how it impacts their life. They need to understand the antecedents, the triggers that cause them to get frustrated and or hurt and cause them to respond behaviorally, in a negative way, where they get frustrated or aggressive or argumentative. As staff, we teach them to avoid power struggles because we don't engage in power struggles. And see those consequences. We don't want to punish the child. We don't want to take everything away. We don't want to put them in timeout. We don't want to do all these things that are punishing because we know that they don't change behavior. We want to offer rewards. And how do we do that? Through praise and positive reinforcement and redirection and education. So we teach our children. If a child doesn't know how to behave, will you teach? Here's the bottom line. Treat everyone with dignity and respect. Know the youth we are serving. What is their history? What's going on with them? What are their likes and dislikes? What is their family background? Did they come from a family that was full of yelling, screaming, and power struggles? Plan ahead. Plan activities. Work together as a staff and a team to make things fun for the children, because education and teaching doesn't always have to be a lecture. It can be fun. Life skills can be fun. Be consistent with our rules and our routines, our policies and procedures. We've just covered those as well. Triggers. Know what triggers a child, what pushes their button, what pushes your button, and make sure everyone knows what those things are. We need to avoid what triggers us. Remember, we've got to understand power struggles by being self-aware and by letting go of that rope so we don't get in an unnecessary power struggle. De-escalation strategies. Is it walking, breathing, writing, singing? Is it talking it out with someone? Is it coloring? There are many different things individuals can use for de-escalation. Meditation, yoga. Think about what you do to relax that you could do in our environment, and also ask the children what they like to do to relax, and can it be done in our environment. Using de-escalation strategies are important to help the kids learn how to control their behavior. Also, making behavior plans with our work team. That would be one another while we're on shift as direct care, but also with our administrative team, with case managers, especially if it's an issue where a child is struggling because of visitation issues, school and homework issues being too challenging, or some other thing that may be going on that needs reevaluation. Remember, many of our children do take medication, and sometimes their medications may not be working. Also, remember to be mindful of time of day. Are they hungry? Are they tired? And remember from so many of our trainings in the past that during that 3 to 11 shift and that bedtime shift, children often struggle because domestic violence and problems occurred during those hours. Always keep that in mind and try to transition those time frames in a calm, peaceful transition. Don't get the kids all wired up right before you take them to the bedroom. That doesn't make sense. And so try to do things in a peaceful, calm transition. Most importantly, build rapport with our children and teens. Healing is in the relationship. And always, always, always strive to be kind. The holidays and emotional stress. The holidays are a special time of year for families, but they can also be a time of stress and anxiety. For foster families, like in our shelter environment, a holiday season can be an extra challenging time. There are a few extra considerations that need to be in place when planning for the holidays. Here are 5 tips for foster families or our shelter environment that help make the holiday season a little easier. Our kids are often asked, "What would you like for Christmas?" I want to be with my family, is a likely answer that one of these kids would say. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. And we know that, which makes them sad. Words of comfort seem like a good idea, but to a foster kid or a shelter kid, that's a slap in the face for an already grieving kid. The holidays in foster care means a giant reminder of just how lonely and how far away you are from your family. Some kids have parents in jail. Other kids have parents whom they've never met. Some parents have passed away. Some kids are thrown away. Sometimes they're separated from their siblings. There are so many reasons why they're separated from their family. Grandparents, pets, friends, neighborhoods. We have to take that into consideration. For a foster child, the holidays are a reminder that nothing you love ever sticks around, and you cannot trust anyone. This is exactly why foster kids, shelter kids, are often more reactive this time of year. Loss is open and exposed constantly in their brain. But for a caregiver, these losses are invisible. We often don't see them. A caregiver can be doing everything in their power to show a child love and compassion, and the child will likely reject our love and compassion, and that's okay. Staff ask what they are doing wrong and why the child continues to act out. Caregivers, therapists, social workers, and anyone involved in foster care or sheltered child's life too often only look at their own actions, but not to take the time out to put themselves in the shoes of the child that's here. An adult in a foster child's life can be doing everything right. You're being kind, you're offering rewards, and you're just doing everything you can to be positive to the kid. But the child comes with pain that needs to be healed. The healing comes in the form of acceptance of exactly where they are, where each child is emotionally at this time. And an emotional range can be various. It could be endless with a kid, especially during the holidays. Each feeling felt is correct. There is no wrong feeling. None are to be dismissed, because if a child doesn't have the power to say how they truly feel, how can they trust anyone else? Here's those tools that I talked about earlier. Tools you can use to help make the holidays more bearable for yourself and for our foster children. Number one is validating those feelings without assumption. This is to say, it's okay to feel however you do, and I'm here to listen if you like to talk. Do not say that you understand or you know what it's like, even if you yourself was a foster kid, because that negates their feelings. Their experience is different than yours, and you can't know exactly how they're feeling or thinking, so don't say that you know where they're coming from. Most foster parents and staff, caregivers, come in and out of a child's life, especially if the child is any way difficult to handle. Those kids bounce around the foster care system. So instead, say to a child that you're going to try your best to acknowledge their feelings as being true for them. A child's feelings have nothing to do with us. Keep your feelings separate from their situation. Practice honesty. It's very common for the truth to be glossed over or even lied about when a child is in foster care. This is the main reason why so many foster kids or shelter youth do not trust. So be honest about things down to the simple things like going to the bathroom or why you can't have pizza this night. It is going to take a long way in building a solid foundation for a child to become, trusting us or relying on us. It's much easier to trust someone who's seen as human and then to have an idea of what a foster parent should be built up in their mind. Humans make mistakes, and so if you make a mistake to these kids or do something you shouldn't, be honest and apologize and tell them that you're sorry, that you didn't have enough information or you made the wrong choice, or you jumped to conclusions. It's more likely that the child will be too. It's more likely that they'll trust you more, and they'll also repeat that behavior of being positive with you as well and being more open. Acknowledge their past. Most foster parents completely ignore that a child has an entire family whom they like and spent the holidays with prior to coming into our care. So it's okay to ask the kids about their holiday traditions. Ask what they liked and disliked about their traditions. Ask if there's any family traditions that they had that they would like to incorporate in our shelter right now. Is it traditions and foods that have never been experienced here? That might be fun for everyone. Sometimes kiddos, might have baked cookies, or sometimes they sang certain songs, or sometimes they looked at Christmas lights, or sometimes they decorated the tree. We need to find out what's important to them and make sure that they have an opportunity to share those with us. Provide a grounding object. This can be a stuffed animal. Remember us in training in behavior intervention calling them a lovey? This can be a stuffed animal, a blanket, a pretty rock, an action figure, anything that a child can take with them if ever they move. Foster youth or shelter kids often that have lost everything, they go away or they get lost in storage when they go from placement to placement. It can be especially helpful to have a significant item that they can grab whenever they're feeling alone or scared, like a blanket, like a stuffed animal, like a lovey. Sometimes it's a hoodie with teenagers or a hat. However, once this item is given, it cannot be taken away. Do not ever take a child's lovey away from them. It's like taking away, their only connection to the world that they love. Don't even threaten to take it away when they're bad. This item should never be part of your barter system. This should be theirs no matter what. When all else fails, laugh. Laughter decreases cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and it's in the brain. And therefore, it relaxes the body, taking us out of the fight or flight mode into a resting mode. Children who've been in foster care, homelessness, runaway homelessness, are used to chaos. Their lives have been not consistent or safe, and which is what is needed to create a secure attachment in the world and in relationships. These children's cortisol levels never reach the resting level that so-called average child's brains meet after stress responses. Instead, our youth's brains are in a constant state of arousal, that fight or flight mode. This causes their immune system to be worn down and weak, and so many social workers I've worked with or staff, caregivers, will say that the youth is faking sickness. No, they really are sick. They're worn out emotionally. They're drained. So I asked the staff, social workers, case managers, if they also live in the same unstable, unsafe life that the child has lived in, how would they feel? Stress has very real effects on our bodies. However, providing a child with laughter and something physical like exercise can be really improving with their mood. This can help with everyone involved. Also remember to take time for yourself during the holidays, because we understand that you're human as well, and you could have had many things go on in your life this year that will impact your holiday mood. You could have lost a loved one, moved, transitioned, lost a relationship, had health problems. There are many things in your own life that could impact your holiday season. You cannot help a child if you are unable to help yourself, so take breaks when you need them. Nourish your body by eating the right foods and laugh at your mistakes. We all make them, so own it. The holidays can be a very chaotic time for our foster kids, our shelter kids, our runaway homeless kids. It's often a reminder of how lonely life is without our family that we once knew. It's okay for them to feel sad, and it's more likely that they will react negatively to things that don't really appear to be a big deal. Kids will make mountains out of molehills this time of year, but it's not because they want to make our lives any harder. It's simply because they're probably hurting on the inside, where it's invisible and we can't see it. If you can be empathetic to the life's journey and honest with them, you're sure to make a positive holiday impact on our kids. Remember to be kind. Remember to use positive reinforcement. Remember to use the ABCs to help a child change their behavior. Try to use a reinforcement system of praise, compliments, rewards. Try to plan fun activities with your team members that benefit the children in teaching them a healthy life skill, or just teaching them to relax and enjoy a recreation time. Being attentive to your group's needs and their emotional triggers with one another is very key. Making sure that the children understand that it's okay to celebrate the holidays. Some of our children actually feel that they don't deserve the holidays because they consider themselves, remember, as bad kids. All children deserve love. All children deserve kindness, and many of our children come from poverty and environments where they didn't get to experience the true blessing of Christmas. It's fun to get presents. It's fun to get toys. Remember when the children get those items to play with the children when you're their group leader. Setting yourself up as that role model to show them how to play properly. And asking them how they like to play with toys is important too. This is how you learn more about the children and get that feedback that you need to know how to help them use the ABCs to change their behavior for the better. Our goal is to be a safe, supportive, non-restraint environment for children. Not a punitive facility, but a rewarding facility. So I encourage you to use praise through the holiday season and rewards, consistency with our policies, procedures, rules, and guidelines, and be a positive planner of activities and a good team member to use your staff to help support you as well as supporting the children. If we use all these things together, we can make a huge impact on the lives of children, and it also makes our jobs more enjoyable. Thank you for being staff who are willing to take on this challenge.